Imagine waking up one day with an overwhelming sensation that something is deeply, unsettlingly wrong. It's not the alarm blaring or the light filtering through the curtains, but something far deeper, a dissonance within you, a gnawing sensation that seems to have always been there. You've spent years chasing after comfort, success, pleasure, seeking refuge in the transient, the superficial, and yet here you are, unfulfilled, as though the entire structure of your life is a fragile illusion, ready to collapse at any moment. Have you ever wondered why, despite your best efforts, there remains a feeling that no matter how much you try to avoid it, pain finds its way into your life? You might ask yourself, why must there be suffering in this world? You might have even turned to philosophy or religion in search of a higher meaning, tried to escape the reality of pain and suffering. But does it ever truly leave? There's a paradox here, a contradiction that we rarely confront. The more we try to avoid pain, the more it seems to control us. Every time you seek to escape it, you find it lurking somewhere else. It's as though pain is a silent, inevitable teacher in our lives, shaping us in ways we never wanted, never asked for. But what if pain, in all its raw, brutal honesty, is not something to escape from, but something to embrace, to learn from, to transform us into something far greater than we could ever imagine? Can you, for a moment, imagine a life where pain is no longer the enemy, but a guide, a force that shapes you, molds you, forces you to confront the very essence of who you are? What would happen if pain became your greatest teacher? These are the questions that we avoid asking, but perhaps they are the questions we most need to answer. And perhaps if we listen closely, we'll hear the echoes of Nietzsche, who once said, "To live is to suffer, to survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." Could the key to freedom lie in the acceptance of pain, rather than the rejection of it? What if the greatest growth could only happen through the most uncomfortable of struggles? The answers to these questions are not found in fleeting moments of happiness or in avoiding discomfort, but in the very pain that we so desperately try to outrun. And as we journey through this, we will come to realize that Nietzsche's philosophy, so often misunderstood, so often dismissed as dark or nihilistic, holds a profound, transformative power that could reshape everything we know about suffering, purpose, and human experience. Are you ready to face that pain? To explore what it can teach you? Let's begin. What if the suffering you've tried so hard to avoid is not only inevitable, but necessary? We live in a world where comfort is idolized and pain is seen as a great adversary. The mantra of modernity, especially in the Western world, tells us that happiness is a birthright, something to be pursued endlessly through the accumulation of wealth, pleasure, and success. This belief is so deeply embedded in our culture that we rarely stop to question its validity. We are taught that pain, in all its forms, is something to be eradicated, a negative force to be escaped at any cost. Yet, when we attempt to escape it, we often find that pain is not so easily evaded. It finds its way back, like a shadow we cannot outrun. In fact, for all our technological advancements, for all our comforts, it seems that we have become more adept at avoiding pain than at understanding it. And in this avoidance, we've created a cultural blind spot, the inability to see pain as anything other than an affliction. Nietzsche, however, dares to take us down a darker path, one where suffering is not just an unavoidable side effect of life, but a gateway to self-realization. His concept of the Übermensch, the Overman or Superman, challenges us to transcend our current limitations, to break free from the shackles of societal norms, and to embrace the very struggles that threaten to consume us. The path to becoming the Übermensch, Nietzsche argues, requires us to engage with suffering, not shy away from it. In fact, he was a why to live can bear almost anyhow. It is not the suffering that defeats us, but our inability to find meaning within it. But why is it that pain, instead of becoming the great teacher Nietzsche proposes, often paralyzes us? To answer this, we must delve into the psychological and philosophical roots of human behavior. Carl Jung's theory of the shadow offers an important starting point. The shadow represents the parts of ourselves that we repress, those uncomfortable emotions, impulses, and desires that we push away in our quest for social acceptance and personal comfort. Pain, often, is a manifestation of this shadow. It arises when we are forced to confront aspects of ourselves that we do not wish to acknowledge. The pain is real, but its true source lies in the dissonance between who we are and who we believe ourselves to be. But Jung did not see the shadow as something to be feared or avoided. Rather, he believed that integrating the shadow, the process of confronting and accepting it, was a necessary step in achieving personal wholeness. To engage with pain, then, is to confront the shadow. It is to acknowledge those aspects of ourselves that we would rather leave hidden. The psychological process of facing pain, of allowing ourselves to truly feel it, holds a potential for profound transformation. Nietzsche, too, encourages us to embrace this tension. He rejects the concept of an easy, comfortable life as a lie, an illusion that keeps us imprisoned in a shallow existence. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he writes, "One must have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." The chaos, the pain, the dissonance, all of these elements are integral to our growth, our creativity, our transformation. Without them, we stagnate. We remain tethered to our illusions, blind to potential that suffering holds. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, whose ideas greatly influenced Nietzsche, famously argued that suffering is intrinsic to the human condition. Schopenhauer's concept of the will to live, the fundamental, insatiable force that drives all human desires, inevitably leads to suffering. The more we pursue desires, the more we increase our suffering. Yet, he believed that it was through the renunciation of desires, the quieting of the will, that one could attain peace. This idea is somewhat in contrast in Nietzsche's vision, yet it still aligns in a crucial way. Both philosophers see suffering as unavoidable, though Nietzsche suggests that we should not renounce it but rather transcend it. What does all this mean for you, for the way you live your life? It means that pain is not the enemy. It's a mechanism of growth. The key to breaking free from its paralyzing grip is not in running away from it, but in understanding it. We cannot heal what we do not confront. And what we confront, the suffering, the chaos, the parts of ourselves we've buried, hold the potential to free us, to transform us. Imagine, for a moment, how different your life could be if you approached each moment of pain as an opportunity for growth. What would it feel like to stop resisting the discomfort that arises in your life and instead lean into it? What could you learn if, instead of fearing pain, you embrace it as a trusted teacher, guiding you to a deeper understanding of yourself? The true challenge, then, is not how to avoid suffering. It's how to use it to create meaning, to sculpt your life into something extraordinary. And this is where Nietzsche's philosophy challenges the very foundation of how we think about our existence. Now, imagine your life as a carefully constructed facade, a wall built to protect you from the harshness of the world, but with cracks that grow wider and more obvious each day. What happens when that wall crumbles? When the pain you've tried so hard to avoid finally breaks through, taking with it all the illusions you built up around you. This is the unseen consequence of ignoring pain, the slow, insidious erosion of your true self. In the pursuit of comfort, safety, and happiness, we often fail to realize that avoiding pain doesn't just prevent us from growing. It causes us to stagnate. Our personal growth, our sense of identity, and our understanding of the world around us all become distorted when we cling too tightly to what is easy, pleasant, and predictable. The more we shy away from the inevitable, the more trapped we become in a cycle of avoidance that robs us of the opportunity to fully engage with our lives. Psychologically, this cycle manifests in what we now recognize as a number of cognitive biases. Take, for example, confirmation bias, our tendency to seek out information that aligns with what we already believe and to disregard or downplay information that challenges our worldview. This bias is an extension of our desire to avoid discomfort. We are often more comfortable with the familiar, even when it means remaining in a state of ignorance, than we are with confronting new, potentially painful truths. This is why we often run from the very thing that could teach us the most, the stark, dissonant reality of our own limitations, the reality of the pain we fear. Neurologically, our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. This is not a flaw, but an evolutionary survival mechanism. The brain's reward system is designed to encourage behaviors that promote survival, including those that bring immediate pleasure or relief from discomfort. However, in the modern world, where survival is less of a daily concern, this mechanism can backfire. We find ourselves relentlessly chasing short-term gratification while neglecting the deeper, more uncomfortable truths that could ultimately lead to long-term fulfillment. This neurological wiring is part of the reason why we avoid pain, but it's also the very reason why pain, when fully embraced, can be so transformative. Pain isn't just an emotional or psychological experience. It has a profound physical impact on our brains and bodies, one that can rewire us for growth if we allow it. Studies in neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections, suggest that engaging with discomfort or pain, whether through physical exertion, emotional struggle, or mental challenge, can lead to growth in areas of the brain associated with resilience, problem-solving, and emotional regulation. Consider how this avoidance of pain subtly influences not just individual lives, but the culture as a whole. Modern society is a breeding ground for distraction, from endless entertainment to social media. From consumerism to pursuit of instant gratification, we have built an entire world designed to keep us entertained, to keep us comfortable, and to keep us from truly confronting ourselves. The more we engage with these distractions, the more disconnected we become from the parts of ourselves that could drive meaningful change. We lose sight of the deeper questions, the existential queries that linger beneath the surface of our daily lives. And so, we remain trapped in a cycle. We avoid the pain, and in doing so, we lose our capacity to learn from it. We hide behind our screens, our work, our hobbies, never truly engaging with the underlying discomfort that pervades our existence. We numb ourselves with temporary fixes, rather than confronting the long-term challenge of facing our deepest fears, our most painful experiences, our unresolved emotional baggage. But here's the truth. By avoiding the pain, by refusing to engage with it fully, we are also avoiding the very forces that could propel us toward deeper meaning and self-actualization. We are rejecting the very catalyst that could unlock our potential and set us free. Consider how this manifests in your own life. Have you ever been tempted to sidestep the discomfort of a difficult conversation, to push aside the uneasy feeling of confronting something you'd rather not deal with? How many times have you hidden behind your busy schedule or distracted yourself with mindless entertainment, only to find that the pain you try to avoid only grows heavier with time? The longer you avoid it, the more power it is over you, shaping your thoughts, your decisions, and your actions in ways you don't even realize. The invisible, cumulative consequences of avoiding pain aren't just emotional, they are existential. The longer we ignore the reality of suffering, the less we live authentically. We become slaves of comfort, unable to tap into the strength, creativity, and resilience that pain, paradoxically, offers us. We lose sight of who we truly are, as we remain trapped in a comfort zone that is, in reality, a prison. And this brings us to the heart of the matter. How do we break free? How do we stop running from the very thing that could unlock our greatest potential? The answer lies not in fighting against the pain, but in learning how to use it, how to let it guide us, and how to transform it from something that diminishes us into something that elevates us. Now that you've seen the cost of avoiding pain, the gradual erosion of your true self, the way it shaped your life in unseen ways, it's time to challenge everything you thought you knew about suffering. It's time to flip the script, to take a radical leap and confront pain, not as something to be feared, but as the greatest ally in your quest for self-transformation. What if the secret to a life of meaning, joy, and fulfillment isn't found in the absence of pain, but in the integration of it? What if the very thing that scares you the most is the key to unlocking the person you were meant to become? Nietzsche's philosophy offers a challenge to all who are willing to face this uncomfortable truth. Suffering, when embraced and understood, can become the transformative force that shapes you into your highest self. At first, this idea seems counterintuitive, even absurd. How could pain, something that brings us to our knees, be the source of strength and greatness? It's tempting to think that the best way to break free from suffering is simply to escape it, to rise above it through denial, avoidance, or distraction. But Nietzsche, in his radical vision, invites us to do the opposite. Rather than retreat from pain, he implores us to meet it head-on and use it as a forge for our character. Consider the concept of the will to power, a central theme in Nietzsche's work. The will to power isn't just about external domination or success. It's about the internal struggle for self-mastery, the ability to impose meaning and purpose upon the chaos of existence. It's about taking the raw material of your life, the pain, the suffering, the failures, and forging them into something meaningful, something transcendent. Nietzsche's idea of a more fatty or love of fate is where the rebellion truly begins. To love your fate is not to passively accept whatever comes your way, but to actively embrace every moment, every hardship, and every joy as necessary components of your journey. When you learn to love your fate, you stop resisting the pain and start transforming it into fuel for your personal evolution. You stop seeing suffering as an obstacle and start seeing it as an opportunity. One powerful example of this is Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. Frankl's own experiences in the concentration camps were harrowing beyond measure, yet he found a way to turn that pain into a profound exploration of the human spirit. Frankl argued that even in the most extreme suffering, we can find meaning, and that meaning itself is what allows us to transcend suffering. In his words, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice. This is a revolutionary shift in perspective. What if the meaning we seek in life isn't something we find through comfort or success, but through the crucible of suffering? What if the moment of greatest pain could become the defining moment of your life, the moment when you truly step into your power? And yet, how do you make that leap? How do you go from fearing pain to embracing it? The first step is a mindset shift. You must start seeing pain as an inevitable, unavoidable part of life. No more pretending that suffering can be avoided or denied. You must look at it squarely in the face, not as something to escape, but as something to learn from, something that can teach you what you need to know in order to evolve. This shift requires courage, the courage to face the uncomfortable, the unknown, and the vulnerable. It requires you to let go of the illusion that comfort will bring you peace and to instead seek out challenges that will bring you growth. It means accepting that life will never be free from suffering, but that each moment of struggle can be an opportunity to become stronger, more resilient, and more in tune with your deepest self. This rebellious approach to pain doesn't just change how you see suffering. It changes how you see everything. When you stop avoiding pain, you begin to approach every challenge in your life with a sense of curiosity and purpose. You begin to ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow through this? In doing so, you turn your life into an ongoing process of transformation. You become the alchemist who turns the base metal of your pain into gold. You might find yourself starting small in daily moments, where you choose to engage with discomfort rather than flee from it. Perhaps it's the difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Perhaps it's the task you've been procrastinating on because it feels too overwhelming. Perhaps it's the moment when you decide to stop numbing yourself with distractions and instead sit with the discomfort of your emotions. Each of these moments is an opportunity to exercise your will to power, to choose how you respond to pain. And slowly but surely you begin to change. Each time you embrace discomfort, you strengthen your capacity to face greater challenges with resilience. You become less dependent on external circumstances for your happiness and more reliant on your inner strength, on your ability to face whatever life throws your way. You begin to embody Nietzsche's vision of the Übermensch, not as someone free of pain, but as someone who has learned how to rise above it, who has learned how to use it as a means of self-transformation. This is not a path for the faint of heart. It is not easy, and it does not promise quick rewards. But it is the path that leads to true freedom, a freedom born not of escape, but a mastery over yourself and your circumstances. It is the path that leads you to the realization that pain, when wielded correctly, can be the very thing that sets you free. Now, as you stand at the threshold of this new understanding, the most profound truth emerges. It's a truth that, once realized, shifts the very foundation upon which you stand. This is the moment where all the struggles, all the discomfort, all the pieces of the puzzle finally fall into place. The discomfort you've encountered, the pain you've tried to avoid, the battles you fought within yourself, all of it begins to make sense. The ultimate revelation, the most powerful insight, is this: pain is not the enemy, nor is it the obstacle. Pain is the pathway. It is not something to transcend, but something to fully engage with, to dance with. It is through pain that you truly become who you are meant to be. The suffering you've endured, the emotional wounds, the struggles, they are the raw materials from which you craft your most authentic self. You may have once believed that to live a meaningful life was to escape suffering, to build a life of security, comfort, and pleasure. And in doing so, you may have unknowingly placed limits on yourself, preventing the most important growth from occurring. But what if, instead of avoiding pain, you leaned into it? What if you stopped seeing it as a negative force and started seeing it as a teacher, the guide that leads you to a deeper understanding of yourself and your purpose? The great paradox, then, is revealed by embracing pain. You are not surrendering to it. You are transforming it. This realization flips your entire approach to life. No longer does pain feel like something to run from. No longer is it a weight, a burden you carry with you. Pain, when fully embraced, becomes something far more profound, a force that shapes you, hones you, refines you. Think of the greatest figures in history, the ones who left an indelible mark on the world. They weren't free of suffering. In fact, many of them endured unimaginable pain. But in that pain, they found their purpose. They discovered the depths of their own potential. They became not victims of their circumstances, but architects of their destiny. Take, for example, the life of Friedrich Nietzsche himself. Nietzsche endured immense personal suffering, both physically and mentally. He battled chronic illness, endured periods of intense isolation, and ultimately faced a mental collapse that left him incapacitated for the final years of his life. Yet in his suffering, he found his greatest insights. His philosophy, built upon the very concept of embracing suffering, continues to resonate deeply today, challenging generations to confront pain as a source of growth and transformation. In your own life, this truth can also be applied. The moments that have shaped you, the pain, the rejection, the failure, are not obstacles on your path. They are the crucibles in which your true character is forged. You might not have realized it until now, but every painful experience, every emotional scar, has been part of your journey towards self-actualization. It is through facing these challenges that you begin to discover your inner strength, your resilience, and your capacity for growth. But the final, most profound realization is this. When you embrace pain, you also embrace your own humanity. The struggle is not an obstacle to be avoided. It is the very condition of being human. It is through the struggle that we come to understand the beauty of life in all its complexity, its fleeting moments of joy, its devastating losses, its moment of clarity and moments of confusion. All of it is part of the human experience. And when you stop resisting that experience, you begin to live in a way that is authentic, profound, and full of meaning. Pain, when fully understood, reveals to you the most powerful insight of all. It is not the pain itself that defines you, but your response to it. How you choose to face the struggles, the heartache, the moments of despair, is what determines the shape of your life. The will to power, as Nietzsche called it, is the ability to not just survive pain, but to grow from it, to turn it into something more, something greater. In this light, pain becomes a form of wisdom. It is a form of life, of transformation. The struggles you face are not signs of your weakness, but your capacity to overcome, to evolve, to transcend. The deepest truth lies in the acceptance of this struggle. By embracing pain, you step into your own power. You become the creator of your own destiny, not because you have escaped suffering, but because you have faced it, understood it, and used it to craft the life you are meant to live. And so, in the end, we return to the question we began with. What would happen if pain became your greatest teacher? The answer, it turns out, is far more liberating than you might have imagined. It is through pain that you become whole. It is through pain that you awaken to your own power. And it is through pain that you find your true purpose. Now, as you stand on the other side of this realization, the path ahead is clear. It is no longer a path of avoidance, a path of comfort. It is a path of engagement, a path where you confront pain not as an enemy, but as a force that will shape you into the person you were always meant to become. The question is no longer if you will experience pain. It's how you will choose to experience it, and how you will use it to become something greater than you ever thought possible. The pain is no longer the weight that holds you down. It is a fire that will forge you into something extraordinary.